Let's get to the advisory now. The latest research shows SMSFs have performed better than retail and industry super options by an average of 1.2 percentage points, over the past 5 years. Joining us to discuss, Liam Shorte from Sonas Wealth Financial Planning and SMSF Specialist Advisor. Liam, welcome back. Good to see you. So talk us through, though, those performance differences.
So, Andrew, look, this is one of the things about SMSFs. They think long term. They don't take risks in an area they don't understand. And that's certainly paid off over the last 5 years up to 2023. University of Adelaide have done all of this research, and they've shown that the average SMSF has outperformed by 1.2% over the APRA funds. And I believe a lot of that is around the fact that a lot of SMSF investors choose blue chip stocks. They choose term deposits and annuities over bonds. Bonds had a really tough time over the last 5 years, and it was probably not a bad area to be out of. So SMSF sort of did well out of that. And you just had Cochlear on there. SMSFs look for long-term opportunities in stocks like that, and it's really paid off over the long term to be just a steady investor there, not trying to flip it. So yeah, the evidence is in, and it's coming in year after year that the average fund is doing very well in the SMSF space. But again, because there are over 600,000 SMSFs, there's a very wide spread between those that are doing very well, and then some who are taking either too much risk and failing, or too little risk and being stuck in cash and fixed interest. But it's good news that the sector is still strong.
So great performance, but let's face it, Liam. Potentially, it is more onerous, isn't it, to have an SMSF? Whereas you can, I guess, elsewhere you can sit back and let others do the work for you.
Yeah, and look, that's one of the things you've got to try and decide when you're using an SMSF. Are you going to be a very active investor? Are you going to be a passive investor? And we're seeing more of this core of index funds forming a property, or something that's a core to the fund, and then all they do is they add satellites around it. But you do have to keep an eye on the markets. But as long as you're not going into something too speculative, a lot of them, again, we're talking about long-term investors in most cases, not people who are just trying to shoot the lights out every year. And for example, I have clients today who now will be looking to get a little bit more exposure to Cochlear, coming in at probably 10 to 14% discount.
Meanwhile, Liam, what's going on with the government's proposed tax on super balances exceeding 3 million? Where do we leave that from the end of last year as it tries to get that through?
Okay, well, yesterday the Liberals and Nationals tried to get the legislation thrown off the docket, but Labour and the Greens are determined that they will bring this to the next election, basically. So it's probably too late to try and bring it up in front of the House this year or in this session, but it looks like Labour's not going to give up on it. I'm tired of talking about this one, Andrew, because it's just a bad tax. It's badly written. If somebody at Treasury or somebody in the government just turned around and said, look, we're going to tax it, but we're going to index it and we're going to link it to CPI, or just something simple that does not destroy some businesses and some owners in funds that will be hit by unrealized capital gains. It's just an unfair type of way of taxing. And there's much better ways of adding some taxes to those with higher balances without causing mayhem and without upsetting people so much.
But it appears the government's not listening. Clearly there has been that advice and you've made representations to the government. Why aren't they listening? Why are they being so obstinate about it, do you think?
Well, it became very obvious yesterday. It's because of the revenue. So basically the government are seeing this as an essential source of revenue for their spending, because they turned around and said to the Liberals, if you're not going to pass it, how are you going to fund your promises? So, instead of looking at whether this is good legislation or good tax, they're concentrating on the fact that it'll bring them in money. This belies what they say when they say it's only going to be 80,000 people that will be affected by this tax. If they're going to be relying on the income, then that they understand that by not indexing it, and the fact that younger people have been in the superannuation system longer than their parents, because it's only been here since 1992, that they know it's going to affect a lot more than 80,000, and that this bad tax will bring in more money than than they're talking about in their paperwork.
Now, in more changes, perhaps you see as positive there, ASIC's targeting advisors over establishment advice for SMSFs. What's that amounting to?
Yeah. So again, ASIC wants to know if people are going into an SMSF, are they being pushed into it? Are they deciding it themselves, fully informed, or is somebody pulling the strings behind them, trying to take advantage of them? So, as an SMSF specialist, I've got absolutely no problem with this sort of clampdown. I want to see ASIC and the ATO asking more and more: are you going to an SMSF for the right reasons? Do you know why you're going into it, and have you got a plan? And the plan should not be, I went to a property seminar and the guy told me that he's got a perfect property for me and he can set the whole system up. That is not the way to take care of your retirement money. So I love the idea that the ATO are going to put some extra and ASIC are going to put extra efforts in to clamping down on the spruikers and asking advisors, why did you tell that client that an SMSF is suitable for them, especially if the client is already doing well in their industry or retail fund. We want people in SMSF space that will get the benefit of being in there, will want the benefit of the control and the transparency. We don't want people pushed into them for the wrong reasons.
Also, you're reminding people to get their notice of intent to claim a deduction before rolling over their funds. Is that what do people forget about doing that?
Yeah, so this is a real issue. If you've put money into super and you want to claim it as a deduction, so it's called a concessional contribution. So it's separate to salary sacrifice or what your employer puts in. You can top up to the 30,000 limit yourself. But the problem is you must claim that deduction before you either roll your funds to a new fund, like if you're rolling into an SMSF, or if you're moving into pension phase, from accumulation to pension phase. So it's really important that if you've put money in, you need the deduction, that you put in that notice of intent to claim a deduction before you move any money. It's just something simple, but when somebody has a big plan of what they're going to do over the next 5 years and they're moving money around, it's something that can get missed, and nobody likes having to pay more tax than they need to.
Well, no, you're right on that front, certainly, Liam. Also, you're asking people to check their minimum pensions. Why is that?
Yeah, so the amount of pension you have to take this year is based on your balance on the 1st of July 2024. Okay, so a lot of those figures are only being worked out now by the accountants and the administrators, but it was also a very good year last year. So in a lot of cases, funds made between 10 and 20% profit last year, and your minimum balance is based on your balance last year plus those profits, and also if you've moved into a new age group. So the minimum pension is 4% up to 65, 5% from 65 to 74, and then 6% from 75 to 80, and it keeps going up like that. So if you've had a good year where your investments have gone up 15%, and plus you've knocked into the next age bracket, you may find that you need to be allowing for about 30% extra minimum pension this year. And so I'm just asking people to be careful with their cash flow and make sure that before 30th of June they take those minimum pensions, and don't leave it and find that they don't have the cash in their fund, that it's stuck in shares and they don't have time to sell to get the money out to pay before 30th of June. So again, it's just housekeeping, it's just best practice, but often it's something where they get hit with two things like that age difference and a very good year in returns at the same time.
And Liam, just finally, I see that some super funds are coming out with some new products, particularly to entice those that want a steady income, but are there caveats to this?
Yeah, look, it's more the fact that they've left it a very long time. They were told to do this a number of years ago. So the accumulation system works really well, but the retirement system is just not working, in a very good way. What we're finding still is a lot of people with smaller balances or money in super, instead of moving into pension phase and giving themselves a steady income in retirement, they're taking out lump sums. And in a lot of cases, that they're just leaving it in cash, or they're because it's available, they're giving it to family, or they're hoping that they'll get more age pension. Ideally, we want people taking care of their own retirement. So basically, the idea is to move into pension phase, into something that's understandable. Not everybody wants to be taking a lot of risk and managing the risk themselves. So the super funds have got to come up with products that are easy to understand, provide a steady income, not as volatile as being just in the share market, and it just takes time to do that. And you're dealing with a lot of people who have had no interest in super all their life. They've just had their employer amounts going in, and suddenly you're asking them to make decisions about how they set that up for the rest of their retirement. So it's going to be a big educational thing. And I am delighted to see that the super funds, the industry and retail are working hard on this. But I think they need to spend more time talking to the average mum and dad and saying, look, how can we explain this? How can we make it really easy for you to understand so that you take advantage of the system in retirement? Because basically your pension is a tax-free bank account. And the last thing you want to be doing is, if you've got money outside, is taking that outside as well and causing yourself tax issues in retirement.